Chapter 71 The Guild's Treasure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Barty Crouch Jr., who pretended to be Mad-Eye, said in class that the killing curse used by young wizards can only make adult wizards bleed from the nose, and he also learned from Hagrid that most large magical animals have strong magic resistance, so the killing curse is not a spell that will kill you, but it is just relatively speaking. If the enemy facing the killing curse has a vitality beyond that of ordinary people and a high magic resistance, it can actually resist the killing curse. Just like the fire dragon, I have never heard of a fire dragon being killed by a black wizard's killing curse. The method to subdue a fire dragon is generally to use the eye disease spell to make it temporarily blind, and then 100 adult wizards use the sleeping spell at the same time to subdue it. If he turned into a giant in the Harry Potter world, he would not be afraid of ordinary black wizards casting the killing curse on him. If he really encountered too many black wizards, he would not be stupid and just stand there and let them beat him. Time soon came to the evening. Before leaving the library, George found that there was another door deep in the library, but the door was locked. Levy, what's in there? But he wondered if there was any particularly powerful magic hidden in the locked door, just like the forbidden book area deep in the Hogwarts library. Just now, when Levy was introducing light magic to him, she mentioned that the first president of Fairy Tale had created the 3 most powerful light magics, which were said to be extremely powerful. Of course, Levy also said that it was just said, because she had never seen the president use it, so he had reason to guess. Whether the 3 super magic books were hidden in the door, Levy looked at the door George pointed at and shook her head. I don't know, but I heard from Sister Mira that only the president can enter there, and there is a very complex and powerful spell seal on the door. Once Natsu was curious and wanted to sneak in, but he was directly bounced by the seal and fainted for 2 days before waking up. When you become stronger in the future, you must find an opportunity to sneak in and take a look. When George heard this, he felt that his guess was more likely to be true. Returning to the lobby on the first floor, there were basically no wizards in the lobby except Kana, who was drinking, and Mira Jane, who was humming a little tune while cleaning. Those who were doing tasks were doing tasks, and those who were going back to the dormitory were going back to the dormitory. The Fairy Tale Guild has special dormitories for boys and girls in the town for the wizards of the guild to live in. Just pay some rent every month. If you want to live in a better house, you can also spend your own money to rent a small villa in the town. You guys come up, I left some food for you, come and try it. Seeing George, 3 people and a cat appear, Mira Jane put down the cleaning she was doing, brought out 4 dinners from the bar and put them on the table. In addition to being the guild's signature girl, Mira Jane is also the guild's logistics manager. She basically handles the drinks and food at the bar, the finances and miscellaneous matters of the guild. Sister Mira, you are so kind. The petite Rebecca threw herself into Mira Jane's arms and rubbed against her, then began to eat with big mouthfuls. She was often hungry because she read too late, and Mira Jane would always leave dinner for her. Thank you, Sister Mira. Sarusik, Doral and George thanked Mira Jane at the same time. When George was about to sit down to eat, he looked at the half-clean sanitation, thought for a moment, waved his hands, and began to chant a spell. Clean it up. Suddenly, all the dirt on the table and the ground gathered together and automatically fell into the trash can, and the scattered wine glasses and tableware also flew to the bar and were neatly placed. In a blink of an eye, the whole hall became clean and tidy. What kind of magic is this? Seeing George's operation, the whole hall was cleaned up, and Mira Jane and others also widened their eyes in surprise. Among the magic they knew, there was no such type of magic. This is descaling magic, a kind of household magic that I learned accidentally during my travels. It can't be used for fighting, but only for cleaning. George made up an excuse to get by, and hooked the spoon with his tail to enjoy his dinner. Since he didn't plan to go out on a mission and stayed in the guild to learn and study magic, he naturally couldn't do nothing. Helping to repair the hall and clean up more can also reflect his value and win everyone's favor. As for money, he has the traceless stretch spell and is afraid of not having money. Making some space equipment and selling it in several cities is not faster than doing missions. It seems that George knows a lot of magic. Mila Jane sat next to George and couldn't help but reach out and touch his cat head. George felt comfortable instinctively when the cat's head was touched, but soon his reason restrained this physical pleasure and dodged Mira Jane's hand. Most of them are non-combat magic, which can't be compared with everyone else. George, you don't need to fight, just practice the repair magic well. If anyone dares to bully you, all the wizards in our guild will twist off his head and let you kick it like a ball. Sarusik next to him said with a smile, although what he said was a joke, it was not an exaggeration. George is now the treasure of the entire guild. If anyone dares to touch George, he will have to endure the anger of all the wizards in the guild, especially the President Makarov. Hearing Sarusik's words, several people laughed. George shook his head helplessly. He thought it was good. At least he had a reliable backer in this world and didn't have to worry about safety. In this way, the few people ate and chatted, and it was dark when they finished. After locking the door of the guild, Mira Jane carried the drunk Kana and walked towards the center of the town with everyone. Mira Jane, Levi and others went back to the dormitory of the guild, while George returned to the hotel. The first half of the journey was the same, so they walked together. After returning to the hotel, George began to summarize the magic knowledge he learned today, and began to practice the entry-level giant magic, trying to enlarge part of the body. It is best to start practicing with easy fingers and toes, or use little George. In the next few days, George entered a stable magic learning and research. He was always the first to come to the guild every day, and then he would go to the library to read books, or chase President Markov in the hall to ask for magic, and occasionally help repair the guild hall and clean up. Most of the time at night, he left with the Rebecca team. When the Rebecca team was on a mission, they were not in the guild, so he was alone. As time passed, he gradually became familiar with the wizards in the guild. He learned some things that he didn't know before. For example, the magic used by Natsu was not simple fire magic, but dragon slayer magic, which was used by dragons. It was much stronger than ordinary fire magic, and it could swallow all flames to increase its magic power, so normal fire wizards would be naturally defeated when they met dragon slayers like Natsu, and Natsu was actually raised by a dragon, and magic was also taught by a dragon. It was just that one day the dragon that raised him suddenly disappeared, and he accidentally joined the Fairy Tale Guild. He can be called a human dragon. Sometimes George thought that maybe his wand in this world could fall on Natsu. Using Natsu's hair as the wand core should be a good choice. Chapter 72 Muggle Repelling Spell. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The wand can increase the speed of spell casting and the power of magic. It is an indispensable thing for him no matter what world he is in. If he had a wand in hand, his strength would be at least twice as strong. Compared to Marvel, this world where magic thrives is obviously easier to find materials for making wands. While the cat clone is working hard to learn the magic of the new world, the main body is not idle either. On this day, George appeared at the school gate with Professor X, Wolverine, Gabriella, Isa, Caliban and the children. Are you sure this is really okay? Wolverine was wearing a leather jacket and smoking a cigar, with a suspicious look on his face. In all his years of living, this was the first time he had heard of a mutant having such an ability. Professor X, on the other hand, is much calmer. You have to believe George, our abilities are inherently diverse and can never be predicted. Based on his understanding of George's character, George would generally not say anything he was unsure about. Since he took them out of the basement, it meant that he was 100% sure. Wing. George cast the wing magic, and a pair of white magic wings grew from his back, taking him quickly into the air. Then he waved his hands and recited the magic spell. Muggle Shield. The Muggle expulsion spells were released by George one by one, and then connected into a large area, covering the entire mutant school. The Muggle expelling spell is a spell created for ordinary people without magic power. After the mutant school is covered by the Muggle expelling spell, ordinary people will automatically ignore the existence of the mutant school when they walk nearby. It's as if in their minds, this school has disappeared and they will automatically take a detour to avoid it, unless George, the wizard, points it out. Ordinary people can see the existence of the mutant school. Okay, let me show you the effect. After landing, George led everyone towards the outside of the school. Wolverine looked at George's folded wings and couldn't help but sigh. I really don't know how many abilities they have implanted in your body, even angel wings. Among the mutants, there once was a mutant named Angel who was born with a pair of wings on his back and could fly. Later, he was taken under Apocalypse's command, further stimulating his abilities. it's just that angels can't automatically fold their wings like George. Oh, shit, it's really gone. After walking out of the school gate, when Wolverine looked back at the school, he suddenly found that the school was gone. What made him even more surprised was that he didn't feel anything was wrong at all. Normally, if a certain building is made to disappear or become invisible, it will be obvious that something is wrong. After all, if such a big building is gone and an empty space is left, everyone will know that something is wrong, but that's not the case now. He feels normal. If he hadn't just come out of school, he really feels that everything in front of him is reasonable, and there can't be any school in front of him. Look, that's our school. At this time, George spoke out and pointed in the direction of the school, and the school that had disappeared from everyone's eyes came back again. Oh, God, the children all exclaimed when they saw the school reappearing. When you come back in the future, take out this glass bead and you can see the school. At this time, George handed a marble into Wolverine's hand. He stored some magic power in that marble. As long as Wolverine holds the marble and is affected by the magic power in the marble, he can naturally see the school. In fact, this is not safe enough at the moment. Only when I learn the large-scale reinforced defense spell and add a layer of defense above the school will it be truly safe. Otherwise, although this can deceive ordinary people's perception, if the other party launches missiles directly towards this area, it can still cause damage to the school. Great, so the kids don't have to stay in the basement all the time. Gabriella's face showed a look of joy, and the children also jumped up with joy after exclaiming, "The basement is just such a big place. Staying in the basement every day without being able to come out is no different from being in jail, but now, they can at least get some sunshine, breathe fresh air, and walk, run, and move around in the huge school." I still want to remind everyone that activities can only be done within the school and not outside the school. George warned the children, except for Wolverine, Professor. He was worried that if any naughty child ran out and the marbles fell into the hands of the enemy, there would be trouble. Don't worry, they are very happy to be able to move around in the school. I will watch them. Gabriella said with a smile, and the children nodded. Returning to school, George asked Wolverine, "How's it going, Tony Stark?" During this period, Wolverine has been monitoring Tony Stark, and today he wanted to use a Muggle expulsion spell to decorate the school, so he specially asked ISA to fly a fighter plane to pick him up. Wolverine smoked a cigar and replied, "Since the last press conference, except for a trip to the Air Force Base, he spent most of the rest of his time in his villa and did not go out. It seems that this kidnapping has made this playboy more honest. He has become more honest. He is probably developing the battle suit that he has not yet completed in the desert cave. Well, don't worry about him for now." George nodded and said nothing more. It seems that Tony Stark spent several months developing the battle suit. Now it has been more than 2 months since he was rescued last time. It is estimated that it will take some time to produce the finished product. Wait until Tony Stark makes the iron suit, and then go back to completely solve Sandor Rice. He has never forgotten Sandor Rice, the big trouble. It is not his style to defend and wait for the other party to attack. Since Sandor Rice can create these mutant children, create him, the synthesis of Magneto and Professor X, and create X-24 young Wolverine, it may not be impossible to create other mutants. If the other party sends a bunch of copied mutants to hunt them down at that time, it will be really dangerous. Muggle shielding spells can shield ordinary heat, but how many abilities do mutants have? Who knows if they will encounter some strange abilities that just restrain Muggle shielding spells, so he planned to wait for Tony Stark to build the Iron Man suit, and then join forces with Tony Stark to attack and destroy the opponent's lair. Don't underestimate Tony Stark's suit. In terms of firepower output and destructive power, it is much more powerful than his current superpowers and magic, although it is also easy to be restrained, but it doesn't matter, there is still him to cooperate, plus Wolverine who has returned to his peak. The key is that he knows the tracking spell, so he is not afraid of not finding the trace of Sandor Rice. Chapter 73 Magic Duel. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. In the Harry Potter world, George found a group of young wizards gathered at the bulletin board when he passed by the castle hall in the morning, discussing something enthusiastically. When he got closer, he saw a new piece of parchment nailed to the bulletin board. The content of the parchment was that at 8 o'clock tonight, the school would restart the Duel Club in the auditorium to teach all the young wizards in the school how to use magic to fight better. The Duel Club was once very popular in Hogwarts. It is said that Flitwick, the current dean of Ravenclaw, was a perennial winner of the Duel Club when he was in school. In a one-on-one duel, even senior wizards could not defeat Flitwick. Later, because young wizards were often injured in duels, the school doctor's office was too busy every day and finally had to cancel it. Now it seems that it must be the opening of the secret room and the attack on the young wizards. Some teachers propose to reopen the Duel Club to train the young wizards' fighting skills so that they can have more self-protection ability when facing danger. It's a good opportunity to observe and learn. George naturally has a positive attitude towards the restart of the Duel Club. His magic skills are basically derived from self-understanding, and many aspects are not formal. In terms of combat, he actually relies mostly on his superpowers, and magic only plays a supporting role, but in a later stage, he must still focus on magic combat, so it is very important to observe and learn some magic combat skills. At 8 o'clock in the evening, when George and the first-year Slytherin wizards came to the auditorium, it had changed, for long dining tables were gathered together to form a very luxurious gilded stage, illuminated by hundreds of candles floating in the sky. The ceiling of the auditorium became as dark as velvet, and almost all the little wizards in the school came, crowded together, and everyone held their own wands, with excitement on their faces, just as everyone was discussing which professor would teach them magic dueling skills. Lockhart, who was radiant in purple robes, and Snape, who was dressed in black and looked cold, came out. The showy Lockhart showed off right at the beginning, first boasting about his magic dueling skills, and then calling Snape his assistant to elevate himself, which made Snape's face even colder. George estimated that if we were to talk about which teacher in the whole school hated Lockhart the most, Snape would definitely be on the list. If it weren't in school, if he hadn't turned over a new leaf, he thought Snape wouldn't mind using all 3 unforgivable curses on Lockhart. The key point is that Lockhart didn't know himself, and actually wanted to compete with Snape on the spot to set an example for the little wizards. Lockhart and Snape stood opposite the stage, and after 3 short sounds, they raised their wands over their shoulders at the same time. Disarm you. Lockhart had only recited half of the spell and the wand movement had not yet been completed, but Snape's disarming spell had already been fired. A red magic light hit Lockhart, knocking the wand in his hand directly away, and he himself was also bounced out, hitting the stage wall and sliding down. What a fast speed! George couldn't help but sigh when he saw Snape casting the spell below. The disarming spell is a second-year spell, and it is also a spell of considerable difficulty. It is one of the most commonly used spells in wizard battles. While forcibly disarming the opponent's weapons, it can also knock the opponent's body away. He himself had also been learning this spell by himself before, and in the past 2 days, he had completed it preliminarily and could release it normally. But his disarming spell was much worse than the one Snape had just released. Not only the power, but most importantly, when Snape released the disarming spell, the wand-waving action was simplified by more than half, and the speed of chanting the spell was also super fast. It felt that the whole process was completed very smoothly in less than a second. That's why Lockhart flew out just after he cast the disarming spell, and he noticed that when Snape finished the disarming spell, he didn't stop, and waved his wand slightly, obviously preparing for the second spell, but Lockhart was too weak, and he didn't block any spells, so he didn't need to cast the second spell. This is a disarming spell. As you can see, I lost my wand, but Professor Snape, don't mind me saying this, your intention just now was too obvious. If I want to stop you, it's easy, but I think it's better to let them see it, so that they can learn some knowledge and know the consequences of being hit by the disarming spell. Lockhart stood up with difficulty, quickly tidied his appearance, and then went on stage again to explain shamelessly. Hearing Lockhart's sophistry, Snape raised his wand and had the urge to cast a killing curse on this guy. As if sensing Snape's murderous intent, Lockhart quickly changed the subject and said, "Okay, now you two will come up to practice, and Professor Snape and I will correct some of your mistakes in the duel." After hearing Lockhart's words, most of the young wizards did not doubt it, and raised their hands and went on stage, including George. He did not believe Lockhart's nonsense, nor did he expect Lockhart to correct them. He wanted to learn from the senior wizards and let Snape help guide his magic combat skills. Lockhart and Snape walked among the young wizards on stage, pairing them up. George was also paired, but his opponent was a short first-year Ravenclaw wizard. "George, my name is Matthew Flitwick. I admire your learning ability and Quidditch skills, but I think I am far inferior to you. But for this duel, I may have to say sorry to you in advance." The young wizard was very confident. Even facing the Slytherin star in front of him, he did not think he would lose in the duel. As a member of the Flitwick family, he inherited the Flitwick family's natural talent for fighting, and he also asked his great-uncle about the skills of fighting with a wand many times. When the first-year wizards were still practicing the levitation spell, he could already use the full-body binding spell very skillfully to fight. "Well, I wish you good luck." George smiled and said nothing more. "Just kidding. Even if he didn't cast magic, he could easily dodge most magic attacks with his extraordinary physical fitness and cat-like motion capture ability. In addition, he has mastered a lot of magic and practiced regularly, not to mention a first-year wizard. Even a wizard who is about to graduate from the 7th grade will not necessarily lose. This time he was mainly for excellence, not because his magic combat skills were really bad." Chapter 74 Duel with Genius George. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. All petrified, that when the battle began, Matthew immediately used the full-body binding spell that he was good at. He can use this spell better than the average third-year wizard. However, before his spell was completed, he felt that his whole body was stiff and unable to move. It turned out that George had already used the whole-body binding spell at this time. The curse stops immediately. Walking up to Matthew and undoing the body-binding spell on his body, George said in an encouraging tone, "You are already very powerful. I am just lucky to be a little faster than you." Although he won, his character cannot be ruined, and the time to win people's hearts cannot be wasted. Sure enough, after hearing George's words, Matthew, who was originally looking disappointed, suddenly became much better. "I will practice hard when I get back and I will definitely beat you next time." He also felt that he might actually be a little worse than George. Of course, this is full of naive thoughts, which will soon be broken by reality. He will find that he may not be able to defeat George until graduation, because George did not use his full strength just now. "Stop, everyone, stop, we have to fight with wands, not fists." Soon, the two of them were attracted by Lockhart's anxious shouting. They turned to look around, only to realize that the entire duel stage was in chaos. Most of the lower-grade wizards don't actually have much magic that can be used for combat. Even if they do, they may not know how to use it in a pinch. People like Matthew can indeed be said to be the best among them, so this also led to many young wizards starting to fight after discovering that magic could not win the battle, especially those who already disliked each other. Even Hermione, the academic wizard who has mastered dozens of spells, is now fighting hand-to-hand with her opponent, Slytherin's sophomore Millicent. Both of their wands fell to the ground. Hermione's neck was clamped by the other's arms, but she still refused to admit defeat and punched the other's thigh with her fist, which was quite strong. Girls at this age are no worse at fighting than boys. There are also some senior wizards who are not good at hand-to-hand combat, but they are not that honest either. Instead of just fighting with disarming spells as required, they take the opportunity to experiment with some miscellaneous spells. Among them, the Weasley brothers were the most hilarious. This caused some little wizards to start getting injured in various ways. "Stand up, Macmillan, look out, Miss Fawcett, pinch hard and the bleeding will stop immediately, boot." Lockhart jumped up and down in the crowd, looking a little panicked. This was not the result he wanted. Snape obviously didn't care over there, maybe because he thought the little wizard's injury was nothing, and Snape's energy was focused on Harry and Malfoy. He just wanted to see Harry being defeated by Malfoy, but Harry was obviously very talented in magical combat. He and Malfoy were evenly matched. One was dancing under the dancing curse, and the other was under the tickling curse. Haha. Laughing out loud. Collapse. Collapse. George shook his head, waved 2 stun spells and knocked down Hermione and Millicent who were fighting. Then he shuttled through the crowd, casting spells one after another, and soon all the first and second grade wizards who were fighting in a group were knocked down. After that, he pointed his wand at the senior wizards, and some third and fourth-year wizards were not his enemies until he faced the 2 most powerful 7th-year wizards. Collapse. Armor protection. Expelliarmus, that the senior wizards were not comparable to the junior wizards. As soon as he joined the battle, George realized the strength of the 7th-year wizards who fought seriously. His stun spell was indeed very fast, but the armor spell on the opposite side was not slow either. Not only did it block his stun spell, but it also cast a disarming spell on him. Fortunately, although he didn't know how to cast the iron armor curse, his physical reflexes were far beyond ordinary people's and he quickly dodged the attack of the disarming curse. It turns out to be George. Do you want to compete with us? Be careful. Although the two 7th-year wizards were a little surprised to see the first-year Slytherin star join the battle, they had no intention of stopping, so the duel between the two turned into a melee between 3 people. The two 7th-year wizards frequently appeared with various difficult spells, and the magic light shot out randomly like lasers. This fierce battle quickly attracted the attention of the audience. In fact, when George helped knock out the younger wizards, he had already attracted the attention of many young wizards in the audience who had not participated in the battle. As the Slytherin star of a famous school, he had just been invited by the National England Quidditch team and was the youngest player in the World Quidditch team. The moment George took the initiative to take the stage for a magic duel, many young wizards are already paying attention to him, no less than Harry Potter, the savior. Now George boldly joined the showdown between 7th-year wizards, and the key point was that he still insisted on not being eliminated, which made everyone unable to take their eyes away. I didn't expect that in addition to being good at studying and playing Quidditch, he is also so talented in magic combat. I suspect he must have the blood of a cat in his body. You see, he doesn't even need a protective shield. He just relies on dodge to avoid all the magic attacks. So handsome, and a little cute, Merlin. I am actually so handsome by a little boy in 1st grade. I'm just 3 years older than him. Age is not a problem. I want to talk. As the discussion below became louder, Snape and Lockhart also noticed the situation here. Seeing that George could not lose in the melee with two 7th-year wizards, Snape immediately showed a relieved smile on his face. It has to be George. If it weren't for the fact that George and Harry have a good relationship, he would never let the useless Malfoy fight Harry. It seems that I still have to teach him a few more combat spells when I have time. He was very satisfied with George's magic combat talent, but George was still too disadvantaged to fight against senior wizards with those few spells repeatedly, which made him think of teaching George his own original spells in advance, and considering that the door of the secret room was opened, if George could master more spells, he could protect himself in danger. In the past, I just thought that George was only in the 1st grade and didn't need to learn and contact those powerful spells so early. It was too difficult. Now it seems that it is not impossible. Geniuses should not be taught according to common sense. Everyone, pay attention to George. He is doing very well. He has been asking me for advice on magic fighting skills during this period, so he has learned some of my true teachings. At this time, Lockhart stood up again shamelessly. Snape was so angry that he almost kicked this guy off the stage. He knew that George often went to Lockhart to ask for advice on magic, but it was not magic fighting skills at all, but only spells such as the Oblivion spell, the False Memory spell, and the Memory-filling spell. At this time, he was more determined to find time to teach George the spells he invented, so that the next time George used them, if Lockhart said that he taught him, he would slap Lockhart in the face on the spot and see how Lockhart could quibble. Chapter 75 Night Bus. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Expelliarmus. Collapse. George saw the gap between the two 7th-year wizards attacking each other, relied on his speed advantage to get close to them, put his wand against his back and cast magic, and finally won the game by luck. To be honest, if it weren't for his physical advantage, in terms of magic level and magic combat skills, he really wouldn't be a match for the two 7th-year wizards. However, this battle also gave him a lot of new knowledge about magic duels in the Harry Potter world. In particular, he benefited a lot from some of the magic skills used by the two 7th-year wizards in their battle. George helped maintain order and showed excellent dueling skills. Although there is still room for improvement compared to me, he is already quite good. 20 points extra. Lockhart stepped forward and hugged George. Snape, who was a little slower, raised his eyebrows. However, seeing that the other party was giving George extra points, he didn't say anything more. He just turned around and walked to the center of the stage. It seems that you idiots haven't mastered the skills of dueling very well. Let's go on stage 2 by 2. Professor Lockhart and I will give you one-on-one guidance, and then we'll start the duel. Professor Snape's suggestion is very good. I will teach George. Lockhart named George directly. The cold light in Snape's eyes flashed away. George is too good to set a good example. I think Malfoy and Potter are good. I will coach Malfoy and you will coach Potter. That's fine. Lockhart thought about it and realized that Harry's reputation was not worse than George's, which was not bad either. All the little wizards exited, leaving only Snape, Malfoy, Harry and Lockhart on the stage. George stood in the audience. He knew what was going to happen next, but he did not stop it. He needed the Chamber of Secrets to continue to be a sensation, because only in this way, Dumbledore would be temporarily suspended from school in the next semester, and he would have the opportunity to wipe out all the dark magic in the Forbidden Area. In his current situation, if he wanted to learn black magic such as the 3 unforgivable curses and the fire curse, he could only rely on the Forbidden Book Zone, but usually as long as he entered the Forbidden Book area, Dumbledore would secretly monitor him, so that he did not dare to risk reading those magic books that recorded dark magic. In fact, he is now very similar to the young Voldemort in many aspects. If he shows interest in dark magic, Dumbledore will probably be unable to sit still, so he also paid special attention to restraint. Sure enough, in the duel between Harry and Malfoy, because Malfoy used the snake summoning spell, Harry revealed for the first time in front of everyone that he had inherited Voldemort's snake language ability, which caused great chaos. Most people in the school believe that Harry is the descendant of Slytherin, because only Slytherins can speak Parseltongue. However, the duel club still held every night, and George would go there every night to train in magic duels with the 7th-year wizards, and his skills in using wands to fight were improving day by day. Soon, the time came to Christmas Eve, and the school officially closed. The Christmas vacation at Hogwarts lasted for more than 2 weeks. After saying goodbye to his professors and classmates, George took his suitcase and his pet Peppa Pig and boarded the return Hogwarts Express. When he first started school half a year ago, he was just an inconspicuous little wizard who was proficient in lockpicking spells and other introductory magic. Nowadays, he is already a famous Slytherin star in school, and he has never lost a single match against 7th-grade wizards in magic. This is even if he doesn't use superpowers. If he uses superpowers to cooperate, his strength will be much stronger. After all, his superpowers have improved a lot compared to when he started school, and he can easily control objects weighing hundreds of kilograms. In the evening, before it was completely dark, George walked out of King's Cross Station. Unlike other little wizards who have parents and go back, as an orphan, he can only return to his home in Knockturn Alley alone. He did not notify Tonks when he returned to Knockturn Alley this Christmas, so it was impossible for Tonks to drive a magic car to pick him up like last time. Things like favor should not be wasted on trivial matters easily. No matter how good the relationship is, if it is always wasted like this, it will gradually become alienated. Night bus. Standing next to the road, George raised his wand and waved it in the air, then shouted loudly. In less than a minute, with a deafening bang, a bright purple 3-decker bus appeared in front of George, with an owl as big as Peppa Pig. It's not very convenient to take the subway or take a taxi. He doesn't know the disguise charm yet, and he can't fly openly, so he chose the night bus, a magical public transport commonly used in the British wizarding community. The night bus is a magical public transportation vehicle specially set up by the Ministry of Magic to facilitate underage wizards or wizards who are too weak to disapparate. A Muggle-inspired bus that has been magically transformed to be very fast and can take you anywhere in the UK. It went into operation in 1865 and was well received by wizards. Welcome aboard the night bus, emergency transport for wizards in distress. Just hold out your wand hand, get in the car, and we'll take you wherever you want to go. My name is Stan Sampak, and I'm your conductor tonight. A young wizard in a purple uniform jumped out of the bus and said to George. George looked at the magic bus with some curiosity, and then got on the bus with his luggage. Hello, Mr. Sampak, please go to the Leaky Cauldron. For 7 silver coins, you can get chocolate for 10, and for 11 you can get a hot water bottle and a toothbrush in any color. The salesman wizard followed and got into the car. By the way, what's your name? George, here are 7 silver cycles. George put the luggage on a bed and took out 7 silver cycles. The interior of the night bus is different from ordinary buses. Instead of seats, there are brass beds, and magic candles are lit on the bedside brackets. Wizards who take the bus can sleep directly on the bed until they reach their destination. George, why is this name so familiar? It looks familiar to you. The salesman wizard was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then quickly rummaged through the discarded newspaper box next to him and pulled out a newspaper from a month ago. He looked at the newspaper, then at George, and immediately stared and exclaimed. So you are George, the Quidditch genius who is rare to see in 1,000 years. It seems that I am somewhat famous in the entire wizarding world. George nodded and smiled when he saw this, but did not deny it. The salesman wizard was obviously also a Quidditch fan. After discovering George's identity, his attitude suddenly improved a lot, and he started chatting with George very talkatively. This is the celebrity effect. Even if you don't know someone, you will immediately have a hidden favorability bonus when you meet them for the first time. Drive, earn. The salesman wizard and the driver wizard said hello, and the night bus suddenly roared and flew out at a high speed that was difficult to recognize with the naked eye, as if it had entered another space. The street lights, mailboxes and trash cans blocking the front automatically jumped out of the way when the car passed by, and then returned to their original positions when the car passed by. Chapter 76 George should not be underestimated. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When I learn alchemy in the future, I will definitely build such a magic school bus for the mutant school. Seeing this, George couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In fact, he has always had an idea in his heart, that is to reopen the mutant school, but it will no longer be named the mutant school, but the superpower human school. The era of mutants is gone forever, but it still leaves a strong mark in the historical archives of major forces. The students in the school can't stay in school all the time. Sooner or later, they have to learn to integrate into human society to live, and they must not continue like this. If the mutant school is reopened, it will inevitably remind people of the past. The name of mutant will make people think of it as another race, and sooner or later they will be excluded, so simply change the name to the superpower human school. In addition to cultivating mutant children in the school, some children with superpowers can also be accepted as students, and various superheroes can be accepted as teachers. In this way, the label of mutants can be diluted, and many current and future superheroes can be attracted to stand on their side. If the school encounters trouble again, he doesn't need to do anything. The teachers and students can handle it, and he can study his magic in peace. No need to worry about trivial matters. Of course, this is just a preliminary idea. Whether it can be implemented and how to implement it need to be decided according to the subsequent development. In less than 10 minutes, the night bus stopped at the door of the leaky cauldron. Goodbye, Mr. Thunberg. After saying hello to the wizard ticket seller, George got off the bus with his luggage. When entering Diagon Alley from the leaky cauldron, it was completely dark. Most of the shops in Diagon Alley were closed, and only a few wizards were left on the street. The icy cold wind blew across his face, which seemed to foreshadow the troubles that would come next. Along the cobblestone path, passing through Partridge's Crucible shop, Gig's Pharmacy, and Florin's Cold Drink shop, George came to Nocturne Alley opposite Gringotts and strode in. There were almost no people in Diagon Alley at night, but Nocturne Alley was just the opposite. Many dark wizards like to come to Nocturne Alley at night to buy and sell some prohibited items, so George never went out at night before. It was too dangerous, but now, he doesn't care so much. Isn't this little Dora? Is she back from vacation? Not long after entering Nocturne Alley, a skinny old wizard blocked George's way, and then looked at George's suitcase with ill intentions. Seeing this, other dark wizards nearby did not come up to stop him, but stopped and watched the show with gloating. Many dark wizards here know George, and know that he is the little slave adopted by old Merton in the potion shop. But now this little slave not only inherited a large amount of old Merton's inheritance, but also went to Hogwarts to study, which naturally made them feel a little unhappy and jealous. Most of their wealth is not as good as old Merton. It's just that old Merton had just died before, and those Aurors often went to the store, and George rarely went out, so they didn't have much chance. However, now, half a year has passed, and the Aurors no longer come. It just happened to be at night, so there is no reason to let it go. Killing is impossible. Killing a Hogwarts student will definitely be wanted by the entire Ministry of Magic, and he will no longer be able to mix in the British wizarding world, but there is definitely no problem with robbing. The Aurors can't go to war for robbery, especially since this is in an alley. He can only blame himself for his bad luck. I think you'd better get out of the way. George drew out his wand like lightning and pointed it at the old wizard. The sharp blade flashed with cold light and flew out of George's sleeve and stopped at the old wizard's neck. How can it be so fast? Feeling the cold murderous intent of the sharp blade at his neck, the old wizard's face was full of horror, and other wizards nearby also showed unbelievable expressions. The object relocation charm is not a very profound spell. It can be used to move things in daily life. In battle, it can also block the enemy's magic by moving objects, or directly hit the enemy, unlike the levitation spell, which makes things float and you have to move them yourself. The relocation spell can move objects directly. What shocked everyone was not that George had learned the relocation spell, but the speed at which George used the relocation spell, with almost no movement of waving the wand or chanting the spell. The moving blade flew to the old wizard's neck, and the key blade was so fast that people had no time to react. This level of relocation spell is already at the master level. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, when seeing George waving and chanting spells, experienced old wizards would take the lead in using magic attacks, and at worst, they could defend or dodge. It was precisely because George was too fast that the old wizard was caught in the vitals before he could react. If George wanted to, he could completely control the blade to cut the old wizard's neck. Little Dora, I don't have any other intentions. I'll get out of the way. I'll get out of the way now. The old wizard swallowed his saliva and slowly stepped back to make way. Seeing this, no one dared to step forward to stop him. The most important thing in the world of dark wizards is that the strong are respected. If you don't have strength, everyone will want to tear a piece of flesh from you. If you have strength, naturally no one will dare to provoke you. If your strength is strong enough and can bring them benefits, they will rush to follow you. With a wave of the wand, George retracted the blade and continued to move forward with the box. When passing by the old wizard, Page, who was standing on the box, stretched out his claws and grabbed the old wizard, and immediately tore off half of his wizard robe. If George hadn't stopped it from moving, it would have gone straight forward to crush the old wizard's head. The old wizard hurriedly retreated and sat on the ground in fear, but he didn't dare to fight back against George and Page, but just used the repair spell to repair the damaged wizard robe. This guy, the future can't be underestimated. At this moment, George's small back and his owl left a deep impression in the hearts of all the dark wizards. At such a young age, he actually has such magical abilities, and the key is that calm attitude. Even the former Dark Lord is not as good as him at this age. Well, showing your claws appropriately can prevent these guys from coming to cause trouble again. George pulled his suitcase and soon arrived at the door of his potion shop. Of course, he didn't use the relocation charm just now. He knew how to use it, but it was just average. It was good for moving things around, but not for fighting. He used his magnetic control just now, and he took out his wand just to cover it up. Chapter 77, Hit Until You Are Willing to Teach. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sure enough, it was really looted. Pushing the door open and walking into the potion store, George couldn't help but twitching at the corner of his mouth when he looked at the messy scene inside. At this time, the potion shop was in a mess, and it looked like it had been robbed. It was obvious that a dark wizard had come in and robbed it during the 6 months he went to Hogwarts. Fortunately, he had already sold all the valuable things, so the other party probably returned empty-handed. Restored to the original condition, waving his wand and casting a repairing spell, the messy potion shop quickly returned to the way it was before he left. The main reason is that he hasn't learned the protective spell yet. Otherwise, he can lay down some anti-lock spells and protective spells before leaving, so that ordinary dark wizards can't get in. This kind of petty thief dark wizard is not very strong. A truly powerful dark wizard cannot do such a shameful thing. Cleaned up. After cleaning up and packing his luggage, George began to stay up late and read again. The magic book he is reading now is called A Preliminary Introduction to Wandology. It is a magic book that specifically explains the knowledge of wands. The publisher is Ollivander, the master wand maker. It explains a lot about wands. Of course, there is only widespread knowledge about magic wands, and there is no mention of how to make them. A wand is mainly divided into two parts, the wand wood and the wand core. Not all wood is suitable for making wands. Only trees that contain magical qualities can be used to make wands. This kind of tree is very rare and difficult to find. It looks like ordinary trees of the same species, and it takes years of experience to identify the differences. But there is also a relatively simple method, which is to see if there is a bowtruckle nest on the tree. Generally, trees with bowtruckle nests can be used to make wands. Different types of trees produce wands with different characteristics. Finding a wand that matches your own characteristics can help you cast spells with twice the result with half the effort. For example, a wand made of acacia tree can only be used to its full power by the most talented wizards, otherwise it will emit strange noises and unpleasant smells, which will greatly reduce the power of magic. Wands made of alder would like wizards who are kind-hearted and helpful. Wands made of apple would like wizards with goals and ideals. Wands made of cedar would like wizards with strong personalities and loyal characters, and so on. The length, stiffness, and elasticity of the wand also affect the wand's power. The core of the wand is even more critical. It is much more important than the wood of the wand. The increase in the magic power of the wand mainly depends on the choice of the core. It is usually made of the hair and organs of magical animals, such as Vela's hair, Thestral's tail feathers, Troll's beard, bird-shaped man-eater's heart nerves and white river monster's back spines, etc. The most precious among them are the tail feathers of the unicorn, the heart nerves of the fire dragon and the tail feathers of the phoenix. Unicorn tail hair. Seeing this, George silently took out a small box from the suitcase, then opened it, revealing several bundles of unicorn tail hairs inside. He knew that wizards like Ollivander were probably not short of money, so it would be very difficult to spend gold and galleons to teach him how to make a wand. That's why he prepared this rare unicorn tail hair, as the most sacred magical animal. Unicorns can be said to be full of treasures. Unicorn blood can sustain life. Even if you are on the verge of death, you can forcefully continue your life. Unicorn horns can be used to make high-grade potions, and 1 gram of powder is worth 21 gold galleons. Unicorn tail hair is the best material for making wands. However, the number of exclusive beasts is extremely rare, and there are only a few in the world. There happen to be a few unicorns alive in the Forbidden Forest, although one was killed by Voldemort last year. A few days before leaving school, George secretly left the castle at night and used his wing magic to fly quietly into the Forbidden Forest. Through his psychic ability, he communicated with the creatures in the Forbidden Forest, avoided dangers such as centaurs and acromantula, and found the few surviving unicorns. Then he used magnetic force to control the blade and cut off all the tails of the unicorns at lightning speed, thus harvesting these bundles of snow-white unicorn tail hairs. Anyway, the tail hair of a unicorn is similar to a horse's tail. It will grow back after a few years and will not cause any harm. He didn't believe that with so many unicorn tail hairs, Ollivander couldn't teach him how to make a wand. You must know that a normal unicorn tail has about 2,000 tail feathers. One tail feather can make a top-notch wand, and George harvested the tails of 4 unicorns, which is a total of 8,000. Root and tail hairs. Smash it, and he will smash it until Ollivander is willing to teach him. Early the next morning, George opened the door of the potion shop, and it was already completely white outside. It snowed all night last night, making Nocturne Alley, which usually looks eerie, a little less scary. Stepping on the white snow, leaving a series of footprints, George walked out of Nocturne Alley and arrived at the entrance of Ollivander's wand shop on the south side of Diagon Alley. This is his second visit to this wand store. The first time he came was to buy wands before school started. Ollivander's wand shop can be said to be one of the oldest shops in Diagon Alley. It has been making wands since 382 BC. It looks small and a bit shabby, and the gold sign on the door is peeling off. After pushing the door open and walking in, a ding-dong-ding sound came from the store. "Good afternoon, do you need to buy a wand?" An old man with silver eyes and white hair greeted softly. It was Garrick Ollivander, the owner of this shop. George walked slowly to Ollivander with a smile on his face. "Good afternoon, Mr. Ollivander. My name is George. I am not here to buy a wand, but I want to learn the skills of making a wand from you." "Are you kidding?" Ollivander's face froze. He felt that this little wizard must be playing a trick on him. Hearing this, George took out a large bag of 100 gold galleons and put it on the counter. I can pay the tuition, as long as you are willing to teach. The tuition is up to you. Sorry, I can't teach you. Ollivander glanced at the gold galleons on the table, showing a surprised look, and then shook his head decisively. Being able to take out so many gold galleons means that the other party really wants to learn wand-making technology, but wand-making technology is the foundation of the Ollivander family's survival in the wizarding world, so how can it be taught to outsiders casually, not to mention 100? Even if it is 10,000 gold galleons, he can't teach. Seeing Ollivander's resolute expression, George sighed, knowing that it was really impossible to impress Ollivander with gold galleons, and then put the box containing 4 bundles of unicorn tail feathers on the table. What if I use these as tuition? Reaching out to open the box, George pushed the box in front of Ollivander. What is the tuition fee? Unicorn tail hair. Ollivander, who was originally calm, almost jumped up on the spot after seeing 4 bundles of unicorn tail hair, and a pair of silver eyes wished to be embedded in the box. Chapter 78 Wand-Making Skills Acquired. You are listening at novelfull.audio. George, from today on, you are my student of Ollivander, and I will definitely do my best to train you to be a master staff maker like me. In the wand shop, Ollivander hugged the box of unicorn tail hairs tightly with trembling hands, and vowed to George. Don't be too excited, I believe you. George looked at the bloodshot look in the old Ollivander's eyes at this moment, and was deeply afraid that the old man would accidentally lose his eyes because he was too excited. For a wizard like Ollivander who has been studying wands almost all his life, giving him 8,000 unicorn tail hairs is just like a martial arts idiot giving him 8,000 top-level martial arts secrets, and a pervert giving him 8,000 top beauties, not to mention asking him to teach you the stick-making skills. Even if you kneel down and call you daddy, he won't hesitate. Okay, when do you want to start learning? Ollivander managed to calm down his overly excited emotions, and then asked, with so many top-notch wand cores, maybe before he dies, he can really develop the most powerful wand comparable to the legendary Elder Wand, and become a legend in the wizarding world and a legend in the wand-making world. Now, if possible. George didn't want to waste time. The sooner he learned to make wands, the sooner his body and another clone would have wands, and their strength would be greatly increased. Touching the box of unicorn tail hair in his hand, Ollivander didn't hesitate at all. He got up and hung up the closed sign at the door, then took George to the backyard. Since George wants to learn now, he will teach now. So George began a happy holiday cane-making journey. Even on Christmas Day, he did not let Ollivander go, dragging him until it was dark before returning to the potion shop. But on the morning of Christmas Day, he still took some time to pick out various gifts for Paige to give away. Among them were Tonks and her Auror colleagues, Slytherin classmates in the same grade, friends such as Harry, Ron, Hermione, Luna, Ginny, and every professor in the school. Even Dumbledore sent a copy. Of course, they are not expensive things. Although he is not short of money, gifts cannot be too expensive, otherwise it will not be a favor and will become a burden, because the other party also wants to return the gift. In this way, the time lasted until the day before the end of the Christmas holiday. This one is very good. It can be regarded as a qualified wand. Your wand-making talent is very good, but don't be proud. You should continue to practice after returning to school. Ollivander looked at the wand in his hand, which was made with a troll beard as the core and a pine trunk as the wand wood, and nodded with great satisfaction. At first, he just wanted to teach George casually. Wand-making is not an easy craft to learn. Basic material knowledge, wand core processing, wand wood polishing, etc., can't be mastered in just a few months, but what I didn't expect was that George had a very high talent for wand making. First of all, the complex basic knowledge, many of which he understood as soon as he explained it to the other party. Secondly, he had a strong hands-on ability and rarely made mistakes. In just half a month, he successfully made a qualified wand. Although there are still some flaws, they are not very important and can be sold normally if hung in the store. Thank you for your guidance during this period. I will come back to you for advice after the summer vacation. George said goodbye to Ollivander politely, then opened the door and left the wand shop. the reason why he can learn to make wands so quickly is not because of his talent for making wands, but mainly because he has 3 brains to learn together and a physical fitness that is far beyond that of a normal wizard. In addition, I had already read a lot of magic books about wand making in school, so I had a certain foundation. This kid, if he studies wand making in the future, he won't be any worse than me. Looking at George's disappearing back, Ollivander sighed again. Meanwhile, the Fairy Tale Guild, George flew out of the library and landed in the guild hall. He glanced around the hall and asked Mira Jane at the bar. "Did you see Natsu, that it's so easy to grow trees containing magic in this magical world? You can find a few suitable trees by flying around in the big forest behind the guild. If you want to be more refined, you can spend a little more money and go to a magic store to look for it. With the stick wood, the next step is the stick core. In fact, it is not difficult to make a wand core. There are many magical creatures in this world, and the wizards of fairy tale often take on some crusade missions to defeat some magical creatures that attack towns. It will not be difficult to ask them to bring some fur or horns for themselves when the time comes, no matter how bad it is. He is a magic cat himself. He can barely use a piece of his own hair as a wand core, but the effect will definitely not be very good. He came to Natsu because he heard that Natsu was raised by a fire dragon, could use dragon-slaying magic, and had a physique close to that of a fire dragon. He wanted to see if his hair could be used as a wand core. According to the history books of this world, dragons are the most powerful magical creatures in this world. If Natsu's hair had even 1% of the effect of dragons, it would be stronger than most magical creatures, so he wanted to give it a try. Tell me Natsu. He accepted a mission to find a book and teamed up with Lucy to do the mission. Mira Jane replied gently. Levy, who was standing on the task bulletin board looking for tasks, ran over quickly after hearing the words. Is it the 200,000 book search task? I was still hesitating whether to take it, but Natsu got it first. The 200,000 book search task is relatively less dangerous, but it is a waste of time. When the time comes, the guild will divide it into teams of 3 and divide it equally, so each person will not get much, minus the round-trip travel expenses, food and lodging, and the consumption of some magic props that may appear. It will be even less, so she had been hesitating whether to take it before. Maybe you are right not to take it, Levy. The task client has adjusted the 200,000 reward to 2 million. At this time, President Makarov jumped down from the second floor and landed on the bar. What, a 2 million reward for finding a book? This is almost the same as the reward for a large-scale crusade task. The wizards in the guild heard the president's words and immediately started to discuss. Many wizards regretted not taking the book search task and missed the 2 million reward in vain. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Natsu was gone, and George returned to the library again, but he also felt that it was right for Levi not to accept the task. High rewards mean high risks, and it is definitely not just a simple bookfinding task, and the strength of Levi's team, to be honest, is really not good enough. Levi's 3-dimensional text magic has many effects, but the attack power of each one is too low. The most important thing is that she herself is not good at fighting and has some problems with her mentality. Her 2 teammates are not as strong as her. To be honest, even George, who doesn't have a wand yet, is not his opponent if he takes it seriously. Chapter 79 Voldemort's Diary. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do you have any clues? George, who had just returned to school, looked at Harry and the other 2 and asked with a smile. In the Hogwarts library, before leaving school, he told the 3 kids the password of the Slytherin dormitory that week. No. Harry looked a little frustrated, while Ron said confidently. Although there are no clues, I can be sure that it is definitely Malfoy. Who else in the school can be the heir of Slytherin besides him? But Malfoy's performance at that time did not seem to be lying. Hermione shook her head, not quite agreeing with Ron's statement. On Christmas Eve, the 3 of them successfully used the Polyjuice potion to transform into Malfoy's followers, and entered the Slytherin common room with the password given by George, but they did not get the answer they wanted, because Malfoy did not admit that he opened the Chamber of Secrets, so this battle plan failed. Don't worry, take your time. Even the professors can't find any clues, which means that the heir is hiding very well. George comforted him and continued to read the magic book. Recently, he began to study the Armored Charm, a spell with extremely strong defensive power. In the magic duel before Christmas, he found that this spell was really useful in battle. When the 7th grade wizard cast this spell, it was like a turtle shell, and it could not be broken without a sneak attack from behind. The key is that after a certain understanding of the armored charm, he knew that this spell can not only defend against magic, but also physical attacks. Even Muggle guns cannot penetrate the armored charm. However, the armored charm also has disadvantages, that is, it can only defend one side, and it must continue to use the magic wand to input magic to maintain it, which also means that other magic cannot be launched at the same time to counterattack. If you want to counterattack, you must first stop the defense of the armored charm. This disadvantage is nothing for George, because in addition to magic attacks, he also has superpowers. You can use the armored charm to defend in front, and then use superpowers to control blades and needles to attack, or directly use a gun to track and shoot in an arc. The only problem is that this spell is a 5th grade spell, which is quite difficult. It will probably take some time to master it if 3 heads learn it at the same time. By the way, we found this, which may be related to the opening of the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. At this time, Harry took out a small, thin, tattered black cover book from his book bag and placed it on the table in the library. This is a diary with T.M. Riddle's name on it. Ron said he saw it in the trophy display room. Riddle won the Special Contribution Award 50 years ago, and Hermione guessed that it is very likely that he won this award because he caught the person who opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. Voldemort's Horcrux diary. George looked at the diary on the table, and his heart felt the evil and powerful soul breath and the tempting spiritual suggestion in it. His face froze, and then he quickly forced himself to return to normal. Then what did you see written in the diary? Nothing, a blank. I tried using the apparition charm and the apparition eraser, but they didn't work, so I want to ask if you have any solution. Hermione replied helplessly. She felt that there must be something recorded in the diary, hidden by special magic. George had read more books than her, and might know how to crack it. George wanted to reach out for the notebook, but soon reason restrained this desire. If he told the 3 little ones at this time to let them hand over the notebook to him for research, then with the trust of the 3 little ones in him, they would definitely agree. Then maybe he could use the soul of the young Voldemort in the diary to obtain a lot of knowledge of dark magic. However, reason told him that he must not do this. On the one hand, Dumbledore might have been watching Voldemort's diary for a long time. If he took it from Harry, he would definitely be monitored by Dumbledore, and everything would fall into Dumbledore's eyes. On the other hand, even if he had psychic abilities, he could not guarantee that he would not be tempted by Voldemort's dark magic, which was too dangerous. For safety reasons, it is better not to touch it for the time being. When Dumbledore leaves Hogwarts Castle, he will go to the restricted book area to learn the dark magic, which is safer and more secure. In fact, he tried to find Snape's Half-Blood Prince's notebook to see if he could learn the sharpshooter in advance, but he never found it. However, before the Christmas holiday, Snape revealed that he might teach him a few original spells this semester. I wonder if there is a sharpshooter. I have seen in a book about alchemy that many magic items have their own ideas because they are given the enlightenment spell. If they cannot be recognized by them, their abilities cannot be used. This diary may not be an ordinary diary. Maybe the enlightenment spell is attached. You can try to communicate with it. How to communicate? Harry was confused. Talk to it? I don't know either. Talk to it, or write directly on it. You can go back and try slowly. George smiled and reminded. The 3 kids thought it made sense, waved to George, and quickly left the library to go back to the common room to try. Thank you, George. You're welcome. George took a deep breath and continued to read the magic book. Some risks can be taken, but some cannot. For a period of time, because Ginny lost her diary and was picked up by Harry, the Chamber of Secrets was never opened again, and the school was temporarily calm again. Half a month later, the mutant school. George looked at the pile of wood in front of him and couldn't help frowning. None is suitable. This is all the types of wood in this world that he asked Leon to send his men to collect, but none of them is suitable for making a wand. Since he learned to make a wand, he must have thought about having one here in Marvel as soon as possible, so that his magic can exert its greatest power. However, this is not Harry Potter and fairy tale after all, and there is no corresponding substitute in a short time. The wand core is easy to say. After his attempts, he can temporarily use the hair of Professor X, the most powerful psychic. If Phoenix Girl is still alive, it should be better to use Phoenix Girl's hair, but the wand stem has not found a suitable substitute. In his imagination, if he could use the trunk of the world tree as a wand, he could definitely make the top-level magic wand. Unfortunately, the trunk of the world tree is not something he can get at now, or the branches on Groot's body should also work. After all, they can be used as the handle of the storm axe, but Groot is in the universe now, and he can't go there now. In fact, in George's opinion, it is not impossible to use other things to make the wand instead of trees, just like the best magic metal URU metal in Asgard. The effect is definitely not bad. Similarly, he can't get it now. What else can be used as a substitute? Chapter 80, Scientifically Modified Magic Wand. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Just as George was thinking about how to find a substitute for the staff in this world, Wolverine made a video call. George, a silver robot-like thing, just flew out of Stark's mansion at a very fast speed. This is the photo I took. Wolverine sent over a somewhat blurry photo. It seems that it has been initially completed. Looking at the unpainted first-generation Mark suit in the photo, George knew that Tony Stark had successfully developed the epic-making weapon steel suit after this period of retreat. Maybe, this guy can be of some help. As soon as his thoughts changed, he had some ideas in his mind. Logan, I'll have ISA pick you up later. What, no need to continue to monitor and protect him? Wolverine had a confused look on his face. George nodded. No, come back and rest. We will officially visit you tomorrow. His idea is simple. Since he can't find a suitable wand wood to make a wand at the moment, why not use the black technology of this world to see if he can use the power of technology to make a wand wood? He does not require that this wand can amplify his magical power like a normal wand, but that it can be used normally so that he can say goodbye to the shortcomings of slow hand gesture casting and allow magic to be effective in battle. At this stage, the only person he knows and has the ability to do this is probably Tony Stark. It just so happens that Tony Stark has developed the Iron Suit, and his plan to counterattack the Ackley Gene Company and solve the hidden danger of Xander Rice can also be put on the agenda. He had been keeping a low profile before and did not go to Dr. Rice's trouble because he was not strong enough. At that time, an X-24 paired with a sniper was a great threat to them, but now, even if he doesn't use magic, he can easily handle it with just the ability to control magnetism. And his magic ability is no longer just a lock-opening spell, but has learned dozens of spells, including some high-level spells. Giant magic and light magic were also introduced during this time. The overall strength has increased more than 10 times compared to before. What's more, he is not alone, and there is Wolverine who has returned to the fighting strength of his youthful peak. If Tony Stark is added to the mix, it is really foolproof. Don't underestimate Tony Stark. Although he only wears the first-generation steel suit, he also has supersonic flight speed and various high-tech weapons for long-range attacks. As long as they don't encounter enemies that restrain their abilities, such as George, most superheroes are no match for him. Now that Dr. Rice has cloned Wolverine, it is naturally possible to clone other mutants. If the delay is too long, he might get a big one. Instead of passively waiting for the opponent to hit the door, it is better to take the initiative. He has already had this idea. If I can get a wand that I can barely use this time, I'll set out immediately. After hanging up the video, George asked ISA to fly to Tony Stark's private mansion in Malibu, California, and pick up Wolverine, who was hiding nearby. Not long after Wolverine left, Tony returned wearing a steel suit and smashed it from the roof of his mansion, destroying a multi-million-dollar luxury car. After taking off his steel suit and applying an ice pack, he couldn't help but feel a little more touched when he saw the simple version of the arc reactor that his assistant, Pepper, had packaged for him. Sitting in his studio, he said to his smart butler Jarvis. Jarvis, for the record, when we were above 40,000 feet, the main sensor failed, and there was also some problem with the casing's pressurization. I think it may have been caused by ice. Sir, your observations are very keen. If you intend to enter space, you must improve the shell material. Jarvis gave advice. Tony thought for a moment and ordered. Contact Cisco and ask them to reselect the shell material to the gold titanium alloy used by the Seraph tactical satellite. This can not only ensure the integration requirements, but also maintain its power-to-weight ratio. Understood, sir. Are the graphics displayed according to the required specifications? Okay. The renderings are completed. This color scheme is too cool. Tony looked at the golden steel suit on the computer and couldn't help but shook his head. Using gold all over it would look too nouveau riche and would lower his taste. It's my fault. You've always been low-key and simple. Jarvis's answer seemed to contain a bit of ridicule, and Tony didn't care. He glanced at the sports car next to him and replied. Add a little bit of that sports car red. Okay, it matches your low-key image. The coloring is done. In a few seconds, a brand new golden red steel suit appeared on the computer. Tony looked at it and nodded with satisfaction. I like it very much. Let's put it together. Automatic assembly begins and is expected to be completed in 5 hours. Have you found any relevant information about George? At this time, Tony suddenly thought of something and asked. After returning last time, he did not tell anyone the information about George, including the most trusted Pepper. This was his promise to George, but out of curiosity, he still wanted to know who the George who saved him was. No sir, I searched for all the people named George and found none with the same characteristics as you described. Isn't his name George? Iron Man hesitated for a moment, then ordered. You look up everyone who bought Stark stock after my accident and then sold it before I came back. Yes, sir. After a while, a series of names appeared on his computer. Iron Man took a quick glance and was instantly attracted by a name. Leon. This guy actually bought so much. Check his information. There are many people who meet the requirements. When he had an accident, many people spoke ill of the Stark Group and the stock price plummeted. However, after the Stark Group has been prosperous for so many years, there are still many die-hard investors, but it's not normal to buy so much at once like this. It's actually not him. Even if it's not, it should still matter. Seeing Leon's photos and related introductions, Tony had some guesses in his mind. At this time, a piece of news suddenly broke out on the TV in the studio. The Disney Concert Hall, with its red carpet, is brightly lit and bustling tonight, and Tony Stark's third annual charity ball for the Firefighter Family Foundation will be held here. The elite of Los Angeles's upper-class society gather here. And the stars are shining brightly. The initiator of this event, Tony Stark, caused controversy by speaking out loud at a press conference not long ago, and he has since disappeared. Some say he suffered from post-concussion syndrome and was bedridden for several weeks. Jarvis, no need to wait for me. Tony put down the ice pack with an ugly look on his face, got up and left the studio. He was going to make a show tonight to prove that he was not bedridden.